Have you ever been told that you're emotionally unavailable? Well, then this video is for you. Welcome back to the Mind Strong Edge. In today's video, we have a letter from a 44-year-old man who is in a relationship, and it's been for a significant amount of time, and he's being told that he is emotionally unavailable, and it's confusing. And we're going to dig into that one today. He writes, "Dear Mind Strong Edge team, I'm writing to you as a 44-year-old man who's been married for over a decade. My wife and I have 3 kids. I've always prided myself on being strong, a dependable provider for my family. I grew up admiring my parents, especially my father, who embodied these same values. I suppose you could say that I'm a bit traditional in how I see my role as a husband and father. But I believe this approach keeps things stable and free from unnecessary drama. I'll put it to you that you're probably in the same boat as 99% of all other fellas out there that are in a relationship that has stood the test of time, where it is a role of dependability, responsibility, and you express that. So that's good that you actually have a reasonably firm grasp on where you see yourself. He continues, lately though, my wife has expressed increasing frustration with what she calls my emotional unavailability. She started comparing me to other men she knows or sees, men who are apparently more open about their feelings. I'll admit I don't really understand what she means by emotional availability, let alone why it seems to be such a big deal for her now." I'm just going to pause there because I've already just had a read ahead on this letter. You don't say much about your wife in this. However, I'm going to take from this that you say you're 44, she's ballpark, similar age, and you've been married for over a decade. You've had 3 kids. I'm going to put it to you that perhaps in the very first instance, and this might be one of the first things that we would talk about in a session, is do you think things are changing for her as a woman? And that really comes out of going through meeting you, obviously, forming a relationship, being together for 10 years and having had 3 kids. It'd be really interesting to know how old the kids are. But there could be something changing there. There could be something changing where her focus or her source of emotional fulfillment maybe has shifted away from the kids. You might have found that when you first started dating, it shifted away from you to the kids, and that's where you fell into this role of being the solid provider. But it could be now that, the kids are starting to get a bit older and, independent maybe, that she's looking back to you for the source of emotional fulfillment. I'm just going to put it out there as a possible thing to consider as we read through the rest of this letter. He continues, "For as long time as I can remember, I've believed that being steady and consistent, especially in the face of emotions, whether mine or others, is the best way to be a good husband and father. To me, being too emotional seems unstable, and frankly, I wouldn't even know how to express feelings like that if I wanted to. I've always approached life logically and practically, and I've tried to be to be a calming, supportive presence whenever my wife has shared her emotions with me." So once again, it sounds like you have a strong self-impression. You know where you stand. You're quite proud of where you stand, and it works. He carries on, "But now I'm starting to wonder if I've missed something important. I'm not sure how to respond to her concerns or why this is suddenly such a focal point of our marriage. I'm also worried that it might be affecting my relationship with her and potentially our kids as well. So my questions are these. What exactly is emotional availability? Why is it so significant in a relationship? And how can someone like me, who is not used to addressing emotions, let alone expressing them, begin to navigate this without feeling like I am abandoning the stability and strength I've always valued? Thank you for taking the time to read this. I generally want to understand what's at the heart of this issue and how I can be better for my wife and family. And we won't mention your name on that. I'm just going to go back here because you mention early up, in fact, in the first couple of sentences, you say you grew up admiring my parents, especially my father, who embodied these same values. Now, we've talked about this before on this channel. It is very likely that the father that you saw, or at least the side of your father that you were exposed to when you were young, is the version that you've created for yourself. It worked for him, and it's going to work for you, and that's the way it is. And there's nothing wrong with that at all, but I'm just pointing that out, that there could be elements of your father in you that you are inadvertently just replicating because they work. And we do this, we actually do this. We all do this. We model ourselves on, the most significant people in our lives during our formative years. And so long as there are aspects of that we see worked, one of the things we may talk about at some point, if we were to sit down and talk about this, is the kind of parenting model that your parents employed. And it'd be interesting to hear how your father was with respect to boundaries and how strict he was, how you saw the relationship with your mother, and what sort of relationship you had with your mother. Was it, overly permissive, or was it quite strict or authoritative? We've talked about these parenting models before. Not going into depth now because there's nothing here to really to talk about. But that would be something that we would discuss, really, just because you've mentioned your parents pretty much in the first instance, and it sounds like you've modeled yourself on that, and it's something that's good. Just in closing on that one point, I just mentioned that we would talk about the relationship between your father and your mother, and I would maybe put it to you at some point that something to avoid is just assuming that relationship is also going to work between you and your wife. You right, see what I mean? If you're taking elements, the mechanics, the scaffolding of what you saw your father doing with your mother, and you're simply applying those, and your wife is fitting into that, it may be the thing that is the challenge right now. So emotional availability, it comes up quite a lot. It does come up quite a lot. And we hear the term, and it is probably one of the most misunderstood terms in a relationship if no one's really gone about explaining it. Quite often it'll be the thing that comes up to say, you're just not emotionally available to me anymore. And as guys, we're like, I've got no idea what you're talking about. And we don't, because we don't understand the idea of being emotionally available. What does this actually mean? And what's interesting in this letter is that you've described how that you value your steadfastness, your dependability. But this doesn't mean that you can't be emotionally available. Now, let's just have a quick talk about this, but I will say that this is something that you do need to go back to your wife on and clarify without being too pragmatic about it. But at its core, emotional availability is about being present when engaging with someone, particularly when they are expressing their feelings. And I think this is the confusion for men, is that we think that when we're being told we're not emotionally available, is that we're the ones that need to be, expressing our emotions and all of a sudden vulnerable and all those sort of things. We're not expressing ourselves enough. And I get a sense in your letter that this is what you perhaps might think when you say that, to me, being too emotional seems unstable, and frankly, I wouldn't even know how to express my feelings like that if I wanted to. And this is a very, very common misunderstanding. In most cases, look, it may not specifically be what your wife is referring to by emotional availability, but we see it a lot where this term, becoming emotionally available, it makes us just think, bare bones sort of response is that, oh, they want me to be more emotional, and I don't know where to start on that. And that's fair. And I think that that's something that you need to be clear about without being, to sort of digging your heels in and claiming your territory on that one. But it's something that I think needs to be understood, that you're not just going to turn on a dime and become, this gushing emotional person, because you're right. You're actually right, is that it could erode the stability and the values that you think you have, because you're allowing more emotions in to cloud your judgment. Now, that's a call that you'd have to make yourself, but I put it to you that it's a common thought process that men go through, that if I allow too much emotions into my thought processes, if I give in to those sort of things, then I'm not making progress, I can't see clearly, and things don't get done. And that's fair, that's absolutely fair. But emotional availability is quite often not meant by that. It doesn't mean becoming overly emotional or abandoning your core values of stability and strength, but rather it's about creating a safe and open space for emotional connection. You see the difference there? Just creating that open space. And it could well be that the space has always been there, because you do say that you actually do this, right? But I just get a sense with looking at your age and how long you've been married and your number of kids, that there could be a change in your wife, in that she's just looking for more capacity from you. She's coming back to you. And this is something that it would be really worth having a nice, easy chat about, or you don't even need to have a chat about. Just open that door a little bit more and just be there for her with just a little bit more capacity than what you currently do. It's very easy to get used to where a person is at emotionally and cater to that and think that that's the status quo and that's the norm. But let's face it, families grow up, things change, and particularly if your kids are in their teenage years, which I'm guessing they may be, then they're changing pretty quick. And it can, for a woman at least anyway, but for guys as well, but probably more so for mum, pull the rug out from under her feet, and she may be feeling a little bit like she needs a little bit more from you. And that is not you being more emotional and being more, open about yourself. It's potentially just the fact that you are more available to her. And it sounds like you have those skills already. You've been doing it, but that's certainly the direction that we would look at in going back and exploring that, and just without saying, hey, without repeating what I've just said, of course, because that could be confronting. All you're doing is just opening the door a bit wider and just being more available. And what's interesting is that you've obviously misconstrued this by thinking that it is about being more, being open, you being up more and her listening to you. But I put it to you that the easiest way to become more emotionally available is to embrace the silence. Just absolutely embrace the silence. Step back from being Mr. Fix-It for a moment, or Mr. Stability, and just use some open questions rather than how are you. It's sort of, tell me about your day is an open question. If you say, how are you today, they could just say, I'm fine, but if you use some more open questions, like, tell me about your day. How was, this, or whatever it was, or how you feeling about young son going off for his first date, or whatever it happens to be. And then just embracing the silence and being very comfortable with it, and allowing your wife to be to express herself more and to reconnect probably in a richer way with you. And your availability then comes from your ability to listen, and for her to feel like she's been heard. Now, you've already taken a significant step in sharing your self-view with us, writing the letter. This requires a certain amount of vulnerability and openness and introspection, and you've done that. And you've been very clear in this letter about how you see yourself. And I get a sense of the fact that you've mentioned it, I think, at least 3 times in the letter, about how you see yourself, that you have a lot of pride in that. You probably feel that, and I would get from that maybe you actually have a pretty strong family unit, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to change. And given the statistics that you've put in your letter, there's every chance that things could be changing, and it's simply just being a bit more open, using some open questioning, and really listening, really actively listening to, without trying to offer to fix anything, and allowing those emotions to absorb them and for them to come your way a little bit more. So you can start by, if you want to address this, by expressing your intention to your wife. You can say things like, I've been thinking about what you said about emotional availability. I want to take this seriously, and I want to understand how we can both feel more connected. Now, you don't have to do that, but if you feel the need to respond to that request for emotional availability, you could come back with that. You could say, you know what, yeah, I think I understand what you mean, and I want to be there for you. Or you could just do it. You can also share your perspective, and I don't mean doing this in a way that sort of is rebuttal. But what you've shared with us, I think, is something that you should be proud of, and you should both be proud of. So I would, talk about the family as you and your wife have built it, not just from your point of view. The fact that you've both been solid, dependable for the family. This might help in the face of what might be seen as some erosion, as the kids get to teenage years. You really want to feel like together you've done something that is emotionally stable, and you've supported your kids, and you're a great team. And this can really, side by side sort of stuff, talk about your kids, and maybe that will open the door to discussing the change, but then let her express what she sees as the change. And it's not a bad thing, because it's going to happen. Like they're always going to grow up. And this is basically leads you into inviting her to share more, opening that door a little bit more. You may even want to just steer away from the words emotional and availability. Just completely forget about it altogether. It's a term she's used. It's thrown around a lot, but you can move away from that and simply respond with your actions, which is just to be more open and available, and giving her that time, being comfortable with the silence, and allowing her to explore her feelings. And the fact that you're available right there next to her to really listen is probably going to set you down the right path. This might be something that is going to take small but consistent steps. There's nothing wrong with that. You could always, at the end when she's talked about something, you could always say, "Look, I'm really proud of how we handled this. We've talked about something new here with respect to the kids or the family or whatever it is, and I really feel like we are a good tight unit." And give her a hug and let her know that you're together on that sort of thing. Again, it doesn't require you to then then all of a sudden it's your turn to share. Quite often it's far more powerful if you can just be the one that is available. You're just giving your time to listen. Some people might, particularly guys, might want to, say, "See, I'm being emotionally available. So, let's forget about that now. I'm doing it." Try not to be that guy. Try not to be the guy that, tries to clarify that, "See, I'm doing it now. So you wanted it and now you've got it," sort of stuff. Move away from that. Just demonstrate your availability just by being present and by doing stuff. Obviously, you've got to make time for that in the relationship, and there's always the mechanics of the relationship that you have to get out of the way before you can then be comfortable emotionally. Guys like Jordan Peterson always recommend at least 90 minutes a week of talk around the mechanics of that stuff. So maybe there's some of those things that you need to get out of the way first before we can get to that place where emotions are freely flowing your way and you're able to sit there and listen. So be prepared for that. Don't just think you can just dive straight in just after dinner and say, "Well, so tell me, what do you think?" And then you're just going to sit back and say nothing. That's not probably going to work like that. So make sure that you kind of like clear the table of all the mechanics of the family and the day and those sort of things before you can sit in that place and actually be comfortable and relax without being distracted. Phones out of the hand, get rid of those sort of distractions. But look, mate, you've already taken the first step in reflecting on your role in this letter. It's a great letter. You've shared some openness with your wife that can, bridge this gap that she's feeling. And hopefully with doing this, you're not going to feel like you're abandoning your core beliefs, about being strong and dependable. In fact, I put it to you that this would make you stronger and more dependable if you are able to work more on that side of emotional availability rather than worrying about expressing your feelings, because that's going to be a difficult path to take. Let's be honest. If we don't have the experience or the skills or the desire, and we feel that it's going to weaken us, then don't go down that path. You know, don't force yourself to talk about things that you think you need to, when really all you need to do is be the person that is just available for someone else's emotions. So look, that is the advice I would give you on that. It is, as I say, a common thing. Guys, a lot of guys, we get accused of being emotionally unavailable. And it is a cliched catchphrase. Let's put it out there. It is. And it's used, I think, inappropriately in a lot of cases. But it's used in the place of people actually being able to express what it is that they want. And sometimes that can be difficult. If you're on the other side of your emotions and you're just looking for someone to listen to you, you're not going to go out and say, I just want you to sit down and listen to me. They may be feeling that, but they really don't want to put it into that sort of words or those contexts. So something like emotional availability comes along and you go, you're just not being emotionally available. What it's really saying is, I just need you to open the door a bit more and to let me express or explore my feelings with my trusted sidekick, and have someone that's going to listen and not try to fix anything, but just listen so that I can express myself, and I feel like someone has actually listened without judgment, you know, validating the experiences and being there. Yes, you can share your own thoughts if you find it necessary, but don't do it under duress. Don't do it if you feel that, you know, you're going to be overly emotional or abandoning your core values of stability and strength. It's about creating a safe and open space for these emotional connections. I'll leave it on that note. Think of it that way. Emotional availability, creating a safe and open space for emotional connections. It's not about you, you know. That is it. Look, thanks so much for your letter. It's an interesting one. We see it a lot. It's almost consistent sometimes in a lot of, particularly when we do couples therapy. It comes up a lot. Look, if you got something out of today's video, give us a like on YouTube, and subscribe to the channel if you like. You'll get our latest video. And if you would like to write in, like our friend has done today, you can send us an email to help@mindstrongedge.com, or you can find the information in the show notes for this video. Thanks for being along for the ride today, and thank you so much for your letter. This has been the Mind Strong Edge.